Hello, my name is Tosca Bruno van Vijveken and I work with the Transnational NGO Leadership Institute, which is housed in the TNGO initiative here at the Maxwell School. We are today talking about a program, a leadership preparedness program that is geared towards transnationally operating NGOs, and that's particularly focusing on those leaders who currently work at the second tier of responsibility within their organizations, let's say in senior management teams, and who wish to prepare themselves for top leadership. And today I'm undertaking a brief interview with Christine So. She is the Vice President for International Programs at Plan International USA, and in a moment we'll talk a little bit about Plan International and how the USA component fits in that. And you're one of our participants this year in the Institute. So thank you for allowing us to interview you. This is very helpful for students, for faculty interested in leadership preparation, transition and succession, and for outside audiences. So let's talk a little bit about Plan International and the USA component. What are you all about?
Well, Plan International is a global federation made up of 20 what we call national offices, which are fundraising development agencies that work in collaboration with the Plan International Incorporated organization, which has an international headquarters and then regional and country offices. And we do child-centered community development work in 50 countries.
Okay.
And so it's a very large, vibrant federation with just a wide variety of contributions coming from both the North and the South, and a really rich history and background and pool of expertise around child-centered development. So we work primarily in the areas of education, health, reproductive health, child protection, economic empowerment, water and sanitation, and other areas. Plan's focus is really working at the community level, working with communities to help them become empowered to make their own decisions and to prioritize the development issues that are most pertinent to them, to harness resources for the development of those issues, but never forgetting about and actually putting first the most marginalized and voiceless people who are typically children, their mothers, women in the community, and youth. And so trying to provide tools and resources to those people as well as to the general community to work more effectively to improve the quality of life, in particular of children.
I see. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you personally got involved in what some people might want to call transnational activism and or service delivery, and how you over time became a leader both in Plan International and in earlier organizations that you've been perhaps leading?
Well, I guess I was fortunate because I knew from a very early age that this was something that I was interested in.
Oh, really?
And just a personal vignette, but when I was 19, I was in Egypt with my father, and our car broke down at the side of the road, and he had to go off with the mechanic to get the car repaired. And the women of the village took me into their house.
Right.
And they showed me their children, and they were very, very poor. And they shared with me what they had, food and water. And they showed me photos of the children who had died. And it was that moment where I thought, okay, I need to be doing something that helps provide resources for people to be able to improve their lives. And I always thought about it in terms of what can I do to give people more capacity to do things for themselves. And so I've been very happy in this sector. I went on and got a Master's of Public Health and a PhD in epidemiology, but then I went into the providing technical assistance, first with a transnational NGO, and then I worked with donors, USAID and UNICEF. And recently I was at a point in my life where I was able to make a decision about what I wanted to do next. And I chose to come back to the TNGO sector, and I've been enjoying it. And and I very firmly believe, having worked both on the donor side and the TNGO side, the absolutely critical role that TNGOs and local NGOs play, and the fact that donors, as much as they may want to can't get things done only working with government. You have to work with civil society. You have to work in partnership. And there is expertise that can be harnessed and optimized and applied that the TNGO community just develops in a way that no other sector really can.
In this program, we talk about the next leadership leap or step that some of the participants may be thinking of. How do you see that for yourself? How do you envisage your next step in leadership development for yourself?
I love a challenge, and so I've very much been enjoying being at the second tier because I work very closely with a team, but I look at my CEO as a mentor, and so we have a common set of goals and a common vision, but especially because I'm just coming back from overseas, she's helping me navigate the Washington, D.C. environment, which is a very particular environment. And I'm also learning from her experience and expertise. But I think that I share some personality traits that she has, and so I can see wanting to move into that kind of a position. And she's very supportive of that, which is nice. For me, in terms of what I want to do next, I certainly want to stay where I am for longer because I haven't been in this position for very long. But I would like to keep expanding the challenge of what I'm doing. And I think that now with the experience I've had working outside of the United States as well as inside of the United States and having both a technical and managerial experience, I have the right skill set to be able to go to the top level of an organization and really take kind of ultimate responsibility for how that organization is developing. I will say one thing, and I'm not sure if it's the next step or if it's farther off in my future, but I would really, at some point in my career development, get away from, what we do is not safe. We are pushing boundaries. We are working with communities to empower themselves. We're taking risks on the fact that we can leverage resources which aren't guaranteed. But at the same time, I personally would really like to move into a position at some point where I'm doing political advocacy, probably around women's issues. I've always worked in the reproductive health field, and I'd like to get back to pushing that political envelope more strongly than what I'm doing now, which is really around community-centered development and a development paradigm.
Right. So as you have observed top leaders in the various organizations where you worked, and interesting enough, you've worked in multilateral organizations also, in the UN system, but looking particularly at NGOs, what to your mind distinguishes working at the second tier of responsibility versus working at the top? What's different about being at the top?
And this is really from my observation of the top leaders I've worked with. I think that they have a richer access to really top-level policy and technical positioning discussions that I personally am really hoping to aspire to. I would very much like to get into that kind of conversation with other top leaders. And when you're at my level, I mean, I certainly have open doors for participating in those kinds of conversations, but they're always at, oh, you're the second, you're the deputy, you're the proxy. And so on the external front, I'm not in a position to be taking a stand or making a statement or taking a decision that's a public decision. I'm still very much in the advisory role. And so that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to. The other thing, which is a huge challenge, but I'm realizing is a very interesting one, is the whole relationship between the CEO and the board of directors. and how it's certainly not a static relationship. It's a very fluid relationship. And the CEO reports to the board of directors, but also can manage and influence and orient the board from behind the scenes. And the different, we've been talking a lot about power and how you manipulate power. And I think that as a CEO, you have to be very strategic about how you work with your board, the kinds of information that you share with your board, what you choose not to share with your board, and how you work with them to ultimately get the entire organization to your end goal.
Interesting. Maybe you've already answered this question to some extent, but let me check anyway. What do you hope to expect? What do you hope to gain from attending the program here? And what are some of the one or two takeaways that so far we're almost halfway into the program that you are taking away from this program?
I think there are three major things so far. One is, and perhaps this is obvious, but it's extremely useful for me, the program provides really clearly presented, well thought through parameters and structure, which serve as resources and tools for us in, going forward when we leave here. How are we going to go back to our office and, when confronted with a conflict situation or with a structural situation, we can refer back to those and say, okay, are we thinking about the four areas, or are we thinking about leadership styles, or what are what are the dimensions of power? So those are resources that are very useful. The second, which again I think is evident because it's built into the terms of reference of the course, is that whole idea of what does it mean to move forward. I appreciated on the first day in the introduction, perhaps it was you, I don't remember, somebody said, we've had people come here and look at all of this and say, actually, I don't want to move forward.
That was me.
Yeah, I'm happy where I am. That's not something I want. And so I think getting this preview and being able to really think through what it means is extremely valuable, because you don't want to commit yourself to something that ultimately is not what you want to do. It's not good for you. It's not good for the organization.
No.
And so having, and for me, I'm in a position, I've only been in my current position for a year. I hope to be there for quite a few more years to come. But already having this orientation gives me a lens through which I can think about how I'm moving forward. So that's very useful. The third thing is a tangential benefit to the course, but for me I think is going to be extremely useful. It's that I don't have a strong networking base in Washington, D.C., in the United States, or the East Coast of the United States. My base is overseas because that's where I've been for the last 15 years. So I now have peers in peer organizations, both in, and we've all been appreciating at this course that there are people who are US based, but also who are not US based.
By intention.
Yes. And so, but the fact that I now have a group with whom I've spent some really high intensity, high quality time, I have people who I can reach out to if I have questions or suggestions, or if I'm headhunting, or just I have a peer group now, and I had some of them, and I knew some of them already, but the fact that we've been placed together in this structured environment and been thinking through the issues and problems that are presented to us here, I think solidifies those ties in a way that is perhaps more enduring or stronger than just somebody who I see at a cocktail party every once in a while. Who
I understand. Yeah. Thank you. Last question. In terms of leadership challenges or opportunities in Plan International, and particularly Plan USA, are there any things that strike you there in terms of leadership preparation, succession, and transition? How is Plan International and Plan USA in particular dealing with these leadership preparation and transition issues?
Well, I think that the fact that PLAN is a federation, and is a federation that's going through some global reform right now. We are looking at our global structure and trying to figure out how we can all work together better.
Yeah.
Means that being in a leadership position in PLAN USA means that at the same time you're in the ultimate position of leadership of an independent organization, but you are also part of a larger organization that has its own leadership. And so you have to be looking inward to your own organization, which is PLAN International USA. You have to be looking outward to your client constituents, so your donors. You need to be looking at the larger federation body and working within that power structure and having those relationships. And then at the same time, never losing sight of the ultimate goal of what we're doing, which is to work with communities to help them build a better base and a better quality of life. So it means that I think in an organization that's not part of a federation, you may end up, it may be a little more, well, you lose having to have that focus on the federation at the same time as your clients and both sides of your clients.
Yeah.
So because there's definitely a lot of negotiation and some power broking that goes on within the federation.
I bet.
And that's another level of work. And within the federation, that's not just at the CEO level. That very much is going on at my level as well with program directors and vice presidents. We have a network. We get together. We kind of work behind the scenes.
Interesting.
But it's a very interesting and challenging dynamic, and I feel very fortunate because I've now had kind of the traditional TNGO setting,
more hierarchical,
the bilateral donor setting, the multilateral donor setting, and now this federation setting, which is different yet again. And I didn't realize when I came in that it was going to be so different. So it's been a big learning experience, but it's very rich.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity to interview you.
Yeah, thank you. This was very nice.